Next half hour, we are going to go behind the point spread. We've got some great games to talk about tonight, so buckle up and get ready because we've got a half hour of fun. Remember to follow Doc Talk Sports and all the great social media channels and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're almost to 1,000 subscribers. Help us get to 1,000 subscribers. Again, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Just search Doc Talk Sports. You can also like the Facebook page and also follow Dr. Rob on Twitter at Doc Talk Sports and me at Travis Creates. This is a interactive show. That means we want you to call in with your betting questions. Well, Rob's not going to answer them. I'm not going to answer them, but our good friend Scott Spreitzer can answer those questions. So now is the time to call. Just picture this like a call-in radio show at 402-543-5556. Again, that's 402-543-5556. Look who's back in the house tonight. It's our one and only Dr. Rob Zatechka at the bottom of the screen and our good friend Scott Spreitzer, who's sitting right next to me. Hey, Scott, what's going on, man?
Oh, man, I'm doing well. And by the way, I want to just alert people real quick. If you see me doing this a lot, it's not that I have some kind of twitch. I got the Aaron Judge watch going up over my shoulders. So that's going to happen from time to time.
It's funny. And you can probably see it right behind my shoulder, too. Yep. And if Dr. Rob gets up to leave, you're on call, so you may have to go to surgery. Is that correct?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm hoping not. We'll see what happens here. But, actually, I do have a day job, although it's 8:30 at night. And, sometimes you got to go in for the night job.
Well, I get that. I understand that. And it's funny because somebody asked me yesterday because you were on Big Red Wrap-Up yesterday on public television. And people were like, what do you do for a day job? Because you're supposed to be a doctor that's rather serious, but yet you seem to be all over TV, podcasting, and radio these days.
Yeah, but everything we do is either at night or it's on a weekend.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I get the evenings off, but I mean, I actually did see that post. I mean, I made the comment. I mean, I responded back. I mean, I usually hit the door at work at 6 a.m. in the morning. So, if I walk out of the hospital at 5 p.m., like a normal going home time, I mean, that's an 11-hour day right there.
Scott, you want to know something funny is that Dr. Rob's wearing a Michigan State Spartan shirt, right? And Husker fans will forgive him because he's well beloved. I'm wearing, the Hawkeye thing, and I'll just get beat up because
everybody knows you're an Iowa State fan.
Stop it. I'm not an Iowa State fan. I'm an Iowa fan. My wife went to Iowa State, so I totally get it. Scott's been in a good mood. You were saying that, nobody's gotten mad at you lately because you're on a bit of a losing or winning streak. You're just waiting for that. Are you one of these guys that when you're on a winning streak going, oh, it's going to happen eventually? The losing's going to happen eventually.
Well, it's gotta. I mean, it's like, that's the thing is like, we're sitting here. What is it? 4 college football weekends into the season with week 0 being counted. And of course, 3 weekends of NFL, and we're sitting here at 20-5. Okay, that I'm just being honest with you. That doesn't last for an entire season. Now, I'm not saying that I'm not hoping that it goes away or we have a losing weekend anytime soon, but we've had everything going our way thus far. And in fact, I'm in that Westgate contest. I'm in the Circa contest when it comes to the NFL, and we're sitting at 13-2 through the first 3 weeks of the season. You pick 5 teams against the spread, 5 sides every week. And we're hoping to turn that into a top 20 finish again, because there's a lot of money involved. It's about $1,000, about a dime for each contest to get into it. And this year, they've got a really cool thing going on right now where they're going to pay like $150,000 just for first place after 6 weeks.
Oh, wow.
So we're right there in the mix. And then at the Circa, it's a guaranteed $1 million for the champion. So you need a whole lot of good luck. And right now we're sitting better than we were last year. Just to show you, I mean, last year, my first week in the NFL, I go 0-5. And in this contest, when you've got 4,000 people you're going up against, you do that once or twice a season, all of a sudden you're playing for top 20 money. You're no longer playing for top 5 money. So far, I'm knocking on wood. I don't want to wake up the gambling gods. We're just, we're still working. We're doing everything the same. And hopefully we'll win more than we lose each and every week.
Well, before we dive into tonight's game, I do want to remind everybody, you can ask Scott any question you want at 402-543-5556. Again, 402-543-5556 is the number to call. And if you got a question for Scott, because he's got great information. Before we dive into the first game, we got 4 to talk about tonight, and I didn't prepare you for this. So if you don't know the answer off the top of your head, you're forgiven. But a couple weeks ago, you gave us, I think, a stat of what the favorites were doing early on in college football. Right? It was an astronomical number of the favorites by far covering the spread. Where is it starting to even out a little bit?
Yeah, it has. It's not, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but it has, we kind of figured it would, as eventually it's going to start to even out because, well, for a couple of reasons. You're going to see teams that might have been overvalued or undervalued are finally starting to get power rated correctly by what they actually play on the field. What we can kind of give an example on a couple of the games we're going to talk about when it comes to that. I'll bring it up. But so you have that going on where teams are actually now being power rated for what they've done on the field other than what they've done in spring, in fall camp, and things like that. So things start to even out a little bit. The books make their adjustments, and sometimes the public is slow to making those adjustments. They stick with teams that maybe they shouldn't and don't make the adjustment to go in with teams maybe they should after a couple of weeks. So you start to see that stuff kind of even out a little bit.
So one question coming in right before we dive in, and it's from Cole. Cole says, is Quinn Ewers going to start for Texas? Only way I can see them favored by so much over West Virginia.
I've seen this week that he's likely going to start. So, I'm not involved in that game, but listen, there's no reason to jump on that game early. I mean, you can check it out, I would say Thursday night, and be able to tell whether or not, or be able to find out whether or not he's going to start or not. See if he practices with the first team. That's one of those games where I would wait till Thursday night or Friday before I jumped in if I was going to. I'm going to leave that game alone, but that would be my answer on that.
Brian says, Scott, watching Maryland and James Madison last week, you need to put a disclaimer on your picks. And it should say, warning, these games may cause a heart attack.
I know. Listen, last week, I was just telling Travis and Rob before the show that James Madison was the top play. And listen, anybody could go out there and pick, a 59-3 winner. Who do you get to play a whole game with? Who do you get to watch from start to finish and get to have that kind of excitement with, right? I mean, I could go out and find those 56-10 games, but that's no fun. They're over with. I'm kidding, by the way. But anyway, listen, it's not all fun sometimes. And I got to be honest. What's his name? Brian, I think that said that. I got to be honest that I had the game turned off. I don't know, it was 28-3 in the second quarter. I was just like, I've seen enough. Yeah, there was a lot of mistakes being made by James Mad. Now, if it was like 14-3, I wouldn't have been in like crap mode because I kind of figured with everything that their opponent had been through the previous weeks, Appalachian State, real tight games against good opponents, upsetting A&M, that kind of stuff, that they would wear down in the second half. But I was confident if I was down 14-3 in that. I was not confident down 28-3. I was thinking, oh, crap, I'm going to get buried today. And they came back and they got the job done. By the way, we're not talking about this game on this week's show, but I do kind of like James Matt again. They're laying like 22 points this week, and I think they get the job done again this week. However, if you are down 28-3, you're not going to cover a 22-point spread as a favorite this week. I think that'd be better.
Let's dive into our first game of the week. And I was actually worried about this one, Scott, because you said it to me earlier, and it's East Carolina at South Florida. Are they going to get this game in?
Yeah, it's been moved, and from Tampa to Boca Raton. So South Florida plays their home games at Raymond James Stadium. Yeah, that's right, right? And so anyway, they play in Tampa at Raymond James, and they moved this to Boca Raton. It's still going to be wet. It's still going to be a little rainy probably, but at least they can likely get this game underway. So South Florida, it's funny because even though they're moving this game, I really don't take anything away from them as far as home field advantage because they really don't have one. But what I look at is that, they've given up 50 to BYU in a game they lost by 29. They gave up 41 last week in a 38-point loss to the Louisville Cardinals. I know they almost beat Florida a few weeks ago. That was more of Florida just not showing up, being tight, making a ton of mistakes than it's anything that South Florida could do talent-wise. They can't match up with that team. That was Florida looking ahead to a big game against the Vols, stuff like that. ECU, 1 point away from upsetting a good NC State team to open the season. They did lose last week to Navy. They outgained NC State, by the way, and they outgained Navy. They lost the Navy game in overtime. I think they're in better shape. They're healthier. They have better talent. And I know it's 9.5, but I think they win this game by about 14 points.
Really? 14. So, I mean, when you look at this, first of all, are you surprised they're playing this, even moving to Boca Raton? I mean, there is so much devastation in Florida right now. I can't even believe they're going to play it, period.
They still might not. I mean, there was one game that's already been moved to Sunday from Saturday. From what I was listening, like when I sent these plays in this morning, they were talking like 90% chance this game goes. And to me, East Carolina's a little bit too juicy to not mention them on the show in case they play this game, which I think they will. But boy, I don't know, man. It's like, God bless those people in Florida. I mean that, man. I mean, watching that today in Fort Myers this morning, when things were getting nasty in Fort Myers, which is south of Tampa, it was pretty scary. So hopefully people will be able to stay safe and this game will get played and ECU comes through by 14. But that's hardly the most important thing going on in the state of Florida right now, obviously.
Dr. Rob, who do you think is the hottest name for the Nebraska job right now?
There's a tangent for it.
Well, it's leading us into our next game. So I didn't tell you what the games were, but
all right. How about Lance Leipold?
Ding, 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 ding. Look at you. You are a smart man.
That was an easy one to guess just based on the game that I'm guessing we were going to talk about.
It's homecoming down in Lawrence. I believe it's another sellout at the Booth Family Memorial Stadium, which is, by the way, is one of the biggest dumps in college football just because it hasn't been updated for a long time. Iowa State is at Kansas. Kansas is the darling right now. And we can have a longer conversation about this game because I talked about it a lot on my radio show today. But Iowa State goes to Lawrence a 3-point favorite. Kansas, however, is the ranked team in the Associated Press poll at 24. They're 4-0. A good win over Duke last week. Before that was Houston. But again, this could be a wild scoring game, but Iowa State a 3-point favorite, Scott.
I got to ask Rob a real quick question. And, I have my opinion on this, but what's a better job right now? Wisconsin, and when they get rid of their coach at the end of the year in all likelihood, or Nebraska? What's a better spot for Leopold right now? And I think it's Nebraska, but I wanted to ask you that.
I mean, if you're going, but I'll tell you, Alvarez put in some pretty good infrastructure and fan following up there in Madison. I think you've got the expectations in Madison now. For some reason, players go there. I mean, they still get good players to go there. I mean, you look at them from a recruiting standpoint. There's about 4 positions that if I'm a Big Ten coach, I want to recruit well, and Wisconsin's done very well at those 4 positions. It's defensive line and linebackers, and it's offensive line and running backs. And if you do really well recruiting at those spots in the Big Ten, you're going to be solid. And Wisconsin has always done very well. And it's to the point now where they're a little bit of a draw for guys who play those positions. And so I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how that pans out. I think in terms of the overall money, I think Nebraska's the better spot. But I mean, Nebraska, I think, has been the better spot in that regard for the last 15, 20 years. And it hasn't fixed our problem.
Sure.
So let me answer that too, because there's an attraction for Lance in both. I mean, first of all, full disclaimer, and Rob knows this. I've known Lance Leipold for the last 20, 22 years of my life because he was the running backs coach at UNO, went on to become the offensive coordinator. So I've known Lance for a long time. You got to remember, his wife is from Nebraska, so there's the Nebraska tie there. However, Lance grew up in Wisconsin, went to college at Wisconsin Whitewater, was a graduate assistant under Barry Alvarez at Wisconsin. And so there was that attraction. I mean, that would be a pull for him, right? I think there's probably a lot more pull probably towards Wisconsin. But come on, we're married. The wife usually wins out, right? Isn't that the way it always works out when it comes to the move? Yeah.
Well, and I mean, the thing is, though, too, with that, I mean, when you're looking at those, I mean, the other thing is, those coaches, I would hope, are coming in and they're going to try and do as much of a talent evaluation as they can. And just, I mean, whatever school where they see a higher ceiling, that's where you're going to end up going. I mean, I think you've got 2 positions. I mean, Travis, when you walked through it, I'm not sure in terms of just the on paper things we've talked about, we're not fairly even there.
Yeah.
I mean, Leipold's coached in Omaha and Lincoln. He's coached in Madison and Whitewater. I mean, I know he's from Wisconsin, but again, his wife's from Nebraska. Where in Nebraska, do you know?
I think Kelly's from Lincoln, actually.
Okay. I mean, it's just, that's one of those deals where I think a lot of those things are going to even out. And I think ultimately that's going to come down to, if it is Leipold that gets an offer, and like I said, I don't know that. This is all speculation unless Trav knows something that he's not telling even me. But I wouldn't think so. Don't give me that one.
I tell you
everything. You guys are always shady.
What do you mean? I tell you everything. You drop more stuff on me about you drop more knowledge after the fact when you can finally tell me something. Like, dude, why didn't you tell me that? Because you don't trust me. We don't have this trust factor.
I guarantee you will put it out there.
I will not. But it's interesting, Scott. You just dropped a bomb on me because I've heard a lot of rumors. You're the first person to say Paul Chryst was going to get fired. I haven't heard that one yet.
Oh,
that's a new one for me too.
I'm just speculating after the way they looked a couple times this year. I just wanted to throw it out there, get everybody talking. You know how it goes.
Like Scott Spreitzer says Paul Chryst is getting fired in Wisconsin.
All I know is a guy from Vegas says Chryst is getting fired. Take it to the bank.
Oh, man.
Not until the end of the season. Come on, guys.
That's classic. Let's go back to the Kansas game. Again, Iowa State at Kansas, homecoming in Lawrence. Iowa State, a 3-point favorite. You said it last week when we had Iowa State on. You didn't like the Cyclones when they were a favorite at home, and they were against Baylor. Here they go on the road as a favorite against the ranked team. What's the rationale here, Scott?
Okay, we talked about adjustments being made when you asked about, how the favorites have been doing, the dogs have been doing, all that kind of stuff, because the favorites were winning every game outright early in the season. So here's an adjustment. This line, first of all, this week was as high as 4.5 in some shops. It's now 3. Here's another adjustment. Iowa State would have been a solid 12-point favorite or so before the season began in Lawrence. So you have to adjust numbers as teams play games, obviously, but it's our job as handicappers and bettors to decide whether or not the adjustment made by the sports books have been too much, not enough, or spot on. I still make Iowa State 7 points better than Kansas in Lawrence. So I think the Cyclones at -3 are a play. I really do. It's a step up in competition for the Jayhawks. The defense that they're going to face this week is the best they'll have played this year. Check out the Kansas schedule. The Cyclones would be power rated 21 points better than Duke on a neutral field, believe it or not. They're 2 points better than Houston, 2 points better than West Virginia. And who cares about Tennessee Tech? Kansas was a touchdown favorite over Duke and Lawrence. They were, big dogs to Houston and West Virginia. They're allowing 4 touchdowns and 400 yards per game against a soft schedule. I think the line adjustment and the level of competition catches up with them this week. So I do think Iowa State goes into Lawrence and steals that win and just kind of sets things a little back for Kansas, a little speed bump. They're going to be happy to be 4-1, obviously, after 5 games. But I think Iowa State gets it done. And again, some people play, or I shouldn't say some, most handicappers and any professional bettors play in lines more than they're playing teams. And I'm going to talk about that on another game, too, in a minute to give an example. But if that's the case, it's Iowa State or nothing because the line adjustment has been so crazy over what's happened over the last few weeks in Lawrence.
So you're saying this is only a 3-point spread because Kansas is like the media darling right now? They've kind of got that attention?
Yeah, I think it's just an over adjustment. And if the books hung a true number on Iowa State, true number, I'm talking about power ratings, and hung this as maybe a 6, they're going to get one-sided action on the Kansas Jayhawks. And so I think it's just a little bit of an over adjustment. However, they are right because what the books are doing is they're not getting a ton of money on one side of this one. And that's what they're trying to do is not get beat up on one side too badly. So I think it's just been a little bit of an over adjustment. Iowa State losing at home to Baylor certainly doesn't doesn't hurt Iowa State's cause against the spread in this particular game when it comes to making this number.
All right, breaking news. Aaron Judge just hit home run number 61.
We missed it.
We missed it.
Gosh, I'm recording it, so I got to go back. I've been watching this damn thing for 5 or 6 or 7 straight days, and the one time I'm not peeking at it, I should have been looking over your shoulder there in your studio.
Know. I didn't even notice it either, by the way. And by the way, our listeners and watchers are very keen to what you did with the Paul Chryst. They're like, Scott just rolls a grenade into the conversation out of nowhere.
I'm sorry, Madison. It's funny because the owner of Doc Sports, the founder of Doc Sports, is a guy by the name of Maury Mosman, who is from Sauk City, Wisconsin. He passed away.
Maury Mosman. I swear to God, you have the most gambler names as your friends. It's not even funny. Maury Mosman is a gambler's name.
It is. And he's from Sauk City, Wisconsin. And, of course, he started the whole business 51 years ago. Maury, unfortunately, passed away a few years ago. His son, Wade Mosman, that's not too Maury Moseman sounds a lot more gambling than Wade Moseman. Come on. But anyway, Wade owns Docs now, and he spends a lot of time in Sauk City. They got sports bars up in Sauk City, that they've had for 50 years in the family. So I'm just kind of ribbing him a little bit in case he tunes in, because I'm thinking, I'm tired of getting beat up by Madison as a Husker fan. Come on already.
Oh my God, we're going to go to the Big Ten. So we've talked about East Carolina and South Florida. We talked about Iowa State and in Kansas. Let's go in the Big Ten. I know you're probably not going to have a play on this game, and I wouldn't either, but I could be wrong. But Michigan's going to be at Iowa. Iowa already injury prone. Keegan Johnson. Cluster Johnson, former Husker. That's his father. Cluster is. Keegan is not going to play this weekend. You got two other defensive guys that are out, one out for the season with injuries. And I got to be honest with you, Iowa beat Rutgers last week, but again, only put up 277 yards of total offense. I watched the game. I got done. I'm like, yeah, they probably went for 350, 375. When I saw 277, I was like, oh, boy, two defensive touchdowns can really jade you on what an offense does.
That's the thing. I mean, Iowa, we know what they are. No offense, strong defense, take advantage of what other teams do as far as making mistakes. I think Michigan is still a bit of an unknown, guys. I mean, they're 4-0, but they played three bad football teams before that game last week when they beat Maryland 34-27. And, they turned it over Maryland three times in that game, or maybe Michigan doesn't win the contest. But Michigan was down 13-10. They rip off a 30-yard touchdown run with 20 seconds to go in the first half. They were only up by 7 with about 4 minutes to go. Each team was able to score a touchdown in the final 4 minutes to keep it at 7 as far as the final margin. But, man, that Hawkeyes offense, as you mentioned, is so bad. I mean, here's how you can tell how bad the offense is. They own the number one defense in points per game allowed, yet they're negative in yardage per game. That's just crazy. You got this fierce defense is doing all the work they can, and they're still negative in yards per game. I can't get past that. Under 250 yards per game, 5 offensive touchdowns in 4 games. I got to lean Michigan, but that unknown about Michigan is what's their offense all about? And are they going to be able to go into Iowa City and put up 28 to 30 points? You would think that they got to score at least 24, 27 points to cover 10.5 in this game. So I'm sitting there and I'm looking at it. I'm like, I just don't know. We got to sit back. This is like a week 0 game where I'm taking notes watching this game, and I will be recording this game because I'm interested in seeing how good Michigan is or they're not. I got to say something about Rob saying, shady guys from Iowa. I got beat up.
For the record,
okay.
His mom and dad are from Iowa. Just to let you know,
okay.
His parents are from Iowa.
Well, I got to tell you guys, I got ripped to shreds making a joke about Iowa a couple of years ago when Peyton Manning was still playing quarterback for Denver. And, he started the Omaha, when he had Audible. And he had a really bad game. I mean, horrible game. I had 3 interceptions, no touchdowns, probably got sacked 6 times. And I went on Twitter and I said, life is so bad for Peyton Manning today, he's saying Council Bluffs when he audibles. I got ripped to shreds by Western Iowa folks on Twitter.
That is an awesome line.
I just had to throw that out there to take a little heat off of Rob.
Listen, I'm from Western Iowa. I got the joke. I appreciate the joke. I really do.
Oh, my gosh, I got lit up. I give Iowa folks credit because they were all over me on that one.
Man, that's a tough one. It's always a tough crowd, isn't it? I mean, God, those Iowa fans. I'm telling you right now, folks, I'm actually begging because, I got my son sitting upstairs playing call screener. We have the phones ready to go. I'm just disappointed that people don't call and talk to Scott. You can ask Scott anything you want, well, within reason when it comes to gambling. and you can ask Dr. Rob a question too. 402-543-5556. Again, that's 402-543-5556. Yeah, I think people still have a hard time believing that you can call a YouTube show and have a conversation. I remember when Scott Frost got fired, Rob, it took we did 2.5 hours. It took the coach just got fired, and it took an hour and a half for people to call. Then they're like, oh, you can actually call and have a conversation. Yeah,
we got a bunch of really good calls.
Yeah, yeah. Because this is a service. We're offering you advice here if you want to bet. So let's go to our final game. This will be Indiana at Nebraska. The Huskers a 6-point favorite. The over/under on this is 6. And the truth is Nebraska has not covered a spread yet this year.
I'll tell you what, here's the deal. First of all, if you like Indiana, grab the 6. If you like Nebraska, there are plenty of 5.5s. So that's betting 101. Shop for the best number according to the team you want to play. If you take 5.5 with Indiana, it's because you didn't shop. It's as simple as that. And if you lay 6 with Nebraska, it's because you're not doing your job. You're not shopping around. But we get back to that thing that I mentioned that I kind of previewed earlier, talking about professional bettors play numbers more than they do teams. If you play numbers, there's only one play in this game, and that would be Nebraska minus the points. Now, give me a break here. I'm not saying you jump on Nebraska. I'm just saying that's what you do if you only play numbers. The Huskers would have been 15, 16-point favorites had this game been their week 0 game and had it been played in Lincoln in week 0. They would have been a 10 to 12-point home favorite after losing to Northwestern. So still would have been laying double digits. So when this week's number opened as low as 2.5, you can understand why the Huskers were a popular, sharp bet and have been driven from 2.5 to as high as 6 at this point. Now, having said that, you do have to factor teams into the mix a little bit. Indiana had 104 offensive plays last week in that game against Cincinnati.
They had 104
offensive plays. They want to speed it up. They can't run, but they can throw the heck out of the football. And if Nebraska can't get it together on defense with Shenander being canned and all this kind of stuff, whatever they're going to do on defense, if they can't play a better brand of defensive football, Husker fans go into the game at Memorial Stadium, get ready for a scary contest. They're going to fire off that, the snap and the offensive line, just rapid fire, one after another. And if they're still struggling on defense, it's going to be a problem. I think Nebraska should score 38 in this game. They were disappointed against OU, but I thought that was just some bad mistakes that Nebraska made, both by the coaching staff and the players. I think they can score 38 against Indiana's defense. My question, can they hold Indiana under 35? That's the scary part. I think this game has a good shot to go over the total. I'm not going to lay or take the points in this one because, again, you've got so many question marks with Nebraska with all the coaching changes. If they lose this game, I don't know if they win another game this year.
Wow.
I mean, this is a huge game to me, I think. I don't know, Rob. I mean, I really was looking at this and thinking if they can't get past Indiana, this might be a team that just completely folds between the ears.
Well, and I mean, God, if Indiana runs 104 plays against Nebraska, that's going to be an ugly game. I mean, how does Indiana stack up compared to, say, like Rutgers?
Yeah, pretty much about even. Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, those are the two games I think everybody's looking at right now and saying, well, maybe we can eke this out. But I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head with the huge question mark. What is the coaching change, having a couple of weeks here for Mickey and Bill Bush as the new D coordinator? I mean, are they going to make meaningful changes that actually have an effect? I mean, you talked earlier about how you kind of have a chance to sort of put a power rating together for these individual schools now that you got a few games under your belt. I kind of feel like Nebraska's sort of resetting that process on an almost weekly basis here with Frost getting fired, then Shenander getting fired, then you're having a bye week for the new coaches. It's almost like every week for 3 weeks it's been a reset. I would think in terms of being able to put an effective evaluation on a team like Nebraska.
Absolutely.
402-543-5556. We're going to go to the phones because, well, Brad's a smart dude. And Brad's on the phone, and I believe you're a repeat caller, Brad. Welcome back to Behind the Point Spread.
I don't know about a smart dude. I'm following a smart dude with Scott Spreitzer there. So anyway, I have a question. I wasn't able to catch your show live last week. I did watch the podcast. And you were talking about parlays and whatnot and how you only bet straight action and you may do a two-team parlay. And I'm sure there's a reasoning behind that. And it probably has something to do like when I go to the bars or whatever and people play Keno, and I always tell them Keno is the lowest payback per chance that you could get of any gambling besides maybe pickle cards. So I wanted to ask you, because I like playing parlays, and unfortunately I like doing round robins. And then last week I was feeling really good about my previous 2 weeks and played a Super Heinz. I don't even know what the hell a Super Heinz is, and I lost my ass.
What is it?
If you could explain a little bit. Well, you can tell me what a Super Heinz is, but
no, you got to tell me.
I lost my rear, baby. But go ahead and tell us why. Like I'm sure it's money back per chance, but if you could explain a little bit why you don't play parlays, that'd be great.
I do play.
Thanks, Brad.
Okay. Thanks, Brad. Super Heinz, I'm just going to say stay away from. It sounds like something I want to stay away from.
Sounds like a sucker bet, man.
But as far as parlays like baseball, I'll play two-teamers in baseball. If I got a couple of minus 200 favorites, I'll link them up together and turn 200 favorites into maybe $1.15, $1.20 underdog bet. But as far as like college football, listen, it's 52.3%. That's what it takes to break even when you're playing 11 to win 10 in college football. 52.3% is just break even. The best of the best. Pro sports bettors are happy with 55%. That's a good season when you're 11 to win 10. And of course, you're betting a couple of dimes here and there, maybe more, maybe a little less. But the bottom line is 55, 56% is going to make you money year after year. So for me, it's one of those things like if I'm, really happy with 55%, I'm not going to try to count on two teams to win for me. And the payback for what you're putting out, as Brad even mentioned there, is just not worth the risk. So, and as far as teasers in college football, I don't know if you alluded to that because we did talk about that a little bit last week. College football, we've talked about it here. The point spread, the final score from the point spread is, 12.5 points away from the point spread. So there's just no value whatsoever on college football teasers. And I tell people in Vegas, and I give them a hard time, like friends, guys I've known forever. And, they're my age, they're in the 45 to 60 range or whatever as far as age. And we'll sit there and we'll talk about it. Even on the air, I'll do it with some of the radio hosts. Yeah, I got this, 2-team teaser. I've got Nebraska to Rutgers, and I'm like, okay, it's time to grow up now. It's time to put away childish toys. Let's stop playing these 2-team teasers in college football. And they laugh, and they also give me a hard time. We razz each other back and forth. But I just won't, I just can't do it as far as college football parlays. The return isn't worth the risk because, again, man, listen, I'm 20-5 this season. That's an incredible start. I'm going to be pleased at the end of this year if all my college football bets are 55 to 56% winners at the end of the year. That's a good season, really good season. And so that can kind of tell you when you got to wrap up 2 teams or 3 teams on a parlay, boy, you're just limiting yourself or you're giving yourself a higher risk than you should.
Hey, Brett out says this. Thanks for your show. I'm late due to golf. Well, that's understandable. Listening from Bremerton, Washington. And he says, Rob, our Washington State beer is coming soon.
Woo-hoo.
Love it.
See, here's what we do. And
West
Brett
Coast beer.
And he also says Doc Talk is his number one podcast because it's a great podcast. That's why. And we've got merch coming, a big merch announcement coming up on Sunday. So get ready for that. But here's what we do, Scott, because we usually get drunk during our podcast because, that's what podcasters should do.
Absolutely.
We have now listeners just sending us beer from all over parts of the country. And you brought up Paul Christ in Wisconsin. We drink a lot of Wisconsin beer. Well,
okay.
don't we, Rob?
I don't want to rip Wisconsin too much. Then,
Hey, I do.
Here's the thing, real quickly.
Yeah,
Can I say
ahead.
real quickly? We gotta find a Wednesday, a midweek Wednesday, where I can get back there late in the season and do a show with you two guys in the same studio, your home studio, whatever. Because
beer.
I want to partake in some of this beer.
Oh, we can make that. You've got to be. Well, I'm sure you have family still here, right?
I do in Omaha. I do have a lot of family in Omaha. Relatives,
The last time you were here, I swear you were on Sound Off with us, weren't you?
Is that the Omaha show? Is
Yeah.
that the one? Yeah, I was on that show with you, and we did that show, and then went down to the Nebraska-Missouri game. Callahan was still coaching. 07, 08.
Is that the last time you were back?
That was a few years ago.
Oh, I went back like the next year. I went back. I flew in on a Friday night. I went to see like Nebraska, Iowa State, and then I flew home Sunday morning. I was in town just for the game and went right back home. I was entertaining thoughts of buying season home tickets for Nebraska football, flying in on Friday nights and coming back home on Sundays. That's how, crazy of a Husker fan I was back then. Probably for my wife's sake, my daughter's sake, bankroll's sake, and all that kind of stuff. They've stunk for the last decade, so there hasn't been that same feeling. But I do remember something, how much things have changed. You had a Kansas City Chiefs reporter on the show I was on with you in Omaha. We were doing it in studio. And you muted my mic because you weren't sure how I was going to react. Remember, he was kind of ripping sports betting. And,
that probably was Mitch Holtis. I don't
remember his name, but he was like, he's a Kansas City Chiefs guy, and he was ripping it left and right. And can't believe you have these guys on. And I'm sitting there with the headphones on, and you flipped off my mic. And I was smiling, and I said, near the break, I'm like, Travis, don't worry, man. I got broad shoulders. That stuff don't bother me.
Oh, man. Good stuff. Hey, do want to remind everybody that we do have the doctor's diagnosis every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday on our YouTube channel. It's sponsored by and presented by Centris Federal Credit Union. Dr. Rob will look at a play from Nebraska, or, we looked a lot at Indiana this week. week. We looked at Kansas State. We're just going to look at really good plays from around college football and dissect them and give them a diagnosis. It's the Doc's Diagnosis, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday on our YouTube channel. That's why you need to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget, Scott Spreitzer is with us each and every week. You can find him at DocSports.com. Follow him on Twitter at ScottWins. And here's the deal. If you want to work with Scott each and every day, text the word Doc Talk to the number 29022, and they will text you a link where you have access to all the content, such as Scott's daily free pick videos, as well as a page where you can sign up and get $60 in Scott's premium member-only picks. Again, that's the word Doc Talk to the number 29022. For more free picks from Scott Spreitzer 7 days a week. If you want a free bet, you can get one from Betfred Sports. All you have to do is download the app on the Apple and Google Play stores. A new account, use the promo code DocTalk. You get a $20 free bet in Arizona, Colorado, and Iowa. Of course, tonight's show was for entertainment purposes only. And if you have a gambling problem, make sure to call 1-800-GAMBLER. Scott, Rob, it's always good to talk to you, my friends. We'll do it again next Wednesday, huh?
Take care, guys. Appreciate it, man.
Sounds good.
All right, this has been Behind the Point Spread. Thanks so much for watching. If you have a question for Dr. Rob or myself, email us, doctalksports@gmail.com. Have a great week and bet with your head, not over it. We'll talk to you next week.